Okay, the crossing config struct is a Limbo level struct, and it's just a calibration of all the important variables that Limbo needs to know in order to facilitate a migration. So we need to know where Behodler is. We need to know the scarcity transfer fee that helps with calculations. Invoking a migration is quite a gas expensive act, so we can set a reward for whoever calls the migration function. We can give them some flan. I mentioned that there was a need for a flash loan attack vector protection. That's what this crossing migration delay is. It just forces a delay between when the sol can be crossed over and when it has finished staking. Morgoth power refers to, remember I said that Morgoth has ultimate say over what's deployed to Behodler. So the Morgoth power, that's the contract on Morgoth tile that has been authorized to migrate tokens from Limbo to Behodler. This is the address of the Morgoth power. Angband is the central managing contract of Morgoth DAO. It's the one that owns all the contracts. So Angband is the fortress of Morgoth in the Silmarillion. Well, it's one of the fortresses. So you need to, in order to execute a Morgoth power, you need Angband. AMM helper, this is where all of the, when I mentioned that we take the scarcity, we mint up some flan, we find out the price on Uniswap, we then mint an LP token with the newly minted flan and the scarcity, all of that happens in the AMM helper. There's also something called price tilting, which happens. So if the price of flan has dropped if it's dropped below $1, or if it's dropped below parity with DAI, then we want it to be strengthened at the point of migration. So what we do is that when we mint up the flan to be accompanied with a scarcity, we don't mint up the value of flan equal to the value of scarcity. We mint up a bit less than that. In other words, we're going to now alter the ratio of flan and scarcity on the LP token, and by doing that, we increase the price of flan. If on the other hand we want to bring the price of flan down, we mint more flan than is required, more flan than the value of the scarcity we're sending. And when it arrives at the pair, the price is then tilted upwards. The flan price increases. And then we have the rectangle of fairness inflation factor. So just in brief, when we mint scarcity, we tend to get we do get, from a migration, we get a lot more scarcity than we want to migrate to, or that we want to send to Uniswap. So there's actually a big chunk of surplus scarcity that we don't want. So what we do is we burn that surplus scarcity so that it doesn't enter into the market and dilute the price. The remaining scarcity, for reasons of technical calculation, is known as the rectangle of fairness. So this is the quantity of scarcity that, when sent to Uniswap, doesn't dilute or affect the price of scarcity. However, Uniswap, the mechanics of Uniswap protect tokens through the slippage mechanism, protect tokens from value declines. So we may be able to increase this rectangle and send more scarcity than we otherwise would without diluting the price of scarcity. Or we may have, as a community, we may have a strategic reason to dilute the price of scarcity or to increase the supply of scarcity. So this rectangle of fairness inflation factor allows the community to pump up the rectangle of fairness to send more scarcity off to Uniswap. Then recall I said we kept running into EIP 170, which said that our contract is getting too big. So kind of a hack around this is I refactored a bunch of logic into 3 libraries. I know that I could have refactored them into contracts, and it's under the hood, it's pretty much the same thing. But conceptually, these are operations that are happening. They're once-off operations and contained operations, and so I prefer to use the library because it's more like, in functional programming terms, this function would be, if it was JavaScript, I would just pass this function around like an object, but it's not. And even though you can technically pass functions of parameters, that's not the intent here. So I've done a bit of refactoring of functionality into 3 libraries. This one, very simple. It just sets it just sets a few parameters on a cell. The crossing lib one, so this one sets a bunch of crossing parameters. Now here you go, you can see Flash governance in action. So the Flash governor, which is a contract which oversees Flash governance, we can insist that movements in variables can only be certain percentages per epoch, per day, whatever it is that we decide as a community. So what we can do is we can call this enforced tolerance function on parameters, on existing and incoming parameters. And if they are exceeded, if there's a percentage change that's too big, it will revert the transaction. So if this function was being called by a proposal, then